Hello, my name is Austin Habish, the founder of Think Catholic, and you're listening to the Summa podcast, where we study St. Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologiae in a way simple and insightful for anyone to understand. The Summa podcast is brought to you by Think Catholic. Taking 2 questions of the Summa a day, we'll seek to summarize St. Thomas's responses, discovering the brilliance of Aquinas. And his Catholic faith is day 174. So let's get started. We're covering today questions 112 and 113 of the Secunda Secundae, that is, of boasting and of irony. The translation that I always use in these podcasts is the one generously provided to me by Ave Maria Press, the 5-volume set translated by the Fathers of the English Dominican province, which you can now get at a discounted price from Ave Maria Press's site by typing in the code Summa 10. And so here we go. Article 1. Whether boasting is opposed to the virtue of truth. And it depends on what we mean by boasting. If what we mean by boasting is elevating oneself by words above what people currently perceive one to be, attempting to increase the awareness of one's personal goodness amongst others, then this will be boasting, but not necessarily a sin contrary to truth. However, if one seeks to elevate themselves by words in the presence of men above what they actually are, then this will be directly opposed to the virtue of truth. Lastly, as we mentioned in our last episode, those who possess the virtue of truthfulness will be inclined to shun even the possibility of others thinking more of them than they actually are, thinking false of them, and therefore will decline to the less, as we explained in the last episode. And therefore also from this perspective as well, boasting can be seen as opposed to men who possess the virtue of truthfulness. Giving one of our exemplars of truthfulness who possess the virtue, who incline to the less, St. Paul says in 2 Corinthians, "Though if I wish to boast, I shall not be a fool, for I shall be speaking the truth, but I refrain from it, so that no one may think more of me than he sees in me or hears from me." Article 2, whether boasting is a mortal sin. And similar to how we went through the 3 kinds of lies and how each of them might be venial or mortal, so here we would have to do the same by considering both the matter and the intention of boasting. For if the content of the boasting is false, and contrary to the love of God and neighbor, such as if one seeks to boast that he is as glorious as God, or seeks to boast by putting down, degrading his neighbor, both of these would be mortally sinful. Then from the perspective of one's intention, if a man were to boast because his end is set on temporal goods, which he seeks to gain through this act of vanity or pride, then also in this way his boasting would be mortally sinful. However, if one's boasting is not grievous in its content and not directly opposed to the love of God and neighbor, it may only be venial. Giving us then a final word in regard to the perfect, why they would not entertain boasting conduct that is boastful, St. Gregory the Great tells us. It belongs to the very perfect by outward deeds, so to seek the glory of their author, that they are not inwardly uplifted by praise awarded them. And moving on to question 113 on irony. Article 1, whether irony is a sin. What do we mean by irony in this context? We mean to belittle oneself, effectively the opposite of boasting. And again, if this only means that a man intentionally fails to mention his better qualities in order to not be thought of more highly than he actually is, then this is not sin, just again inclining to the less. Yet if irony entail lying, then it would be sinful. As Aquinas tells us, and in response to our article he writes, secondly, a person belittles himself by forsaking the truth, for instance, by ascribing to himself something mean, the existence of which in himself he does not perceive, or by denying something great of himself, which nevertheless he perceives himself to possess. This pertains to irony, and is always a sin. Article 2 in our last article, whether irony is a less grievous sin than boasting. And apart from interrogating the matter and the motive of this particular sin of boasting or this particular sin of irony, as a general rule, the sin of irony is less grievous than boasting. As Aquinas teaches, for the most part, boasting proceeds from a viler motive, namely the desire of gain or honor, whereas irony arises from a man's averseness, albeit inordinate, to be disagreeable to others by uplifting himself. And in this respect, Aristotle says that boasting is a more grievous sin than irony. And with that, we've just concluded a very brief episode. We have just finished covering questions 112 and 113 of the secunda, that is, of boasting and irony. My name is Austin Habish with Think Catholic, and I cannot wait to see you tomorrow.